Scratch down to a field of 5. Filly mares lining up in behind the Metro Home Building Center starting gate for tonight's 7th race. Back upstairs to Vance Cameron for the call.
Scratch down to a field of 5 in the 7th. Speaking of shadow, Rock and Roll K's, Miss Chantal Makabe, Roses for Jenny, and Georgia Thompson. Top of the stretch. Here they come. The rough and pacing Rock and Roll K's in at the rail, speaking of shadow, and Georgia Thompson joins them from the outside. 4th into the turn, Miss Chantal Makabe, then the early trailer. That is Roses for Jenny. The leader, Georgia Thompson, shoots to the front for Adam Murner. Rock and Roll K's is now 2nd and going right on after that leader. 3rd is Speaking of Shadow, racing from 4th is Miss Chantal Makabe. Trailing the field 5th, Roses for Jenny. So Rock and Roll K's and Kenny Murphy took over the lead up at 29 and 1 opening quarter. Georgia Thompson now 2nd. Speaking of Shadow around the turn 3rd. 4th up the rail, Miss Chantal Makabe. Then the trailer 5th. Roses for Jenny. Down the stretch they come. The opening half mile, the next station, and Rock and Roll K's will be the midway point leader. Georgia Thompson right up in the rigging in the 2-hole, racing from 3rd. That's Speaking of Shadow. 4th is Miss Chantal Makabe, and she edges out. Trailing 5th, Roses for Jenny. 58 and 1 was the half mile. 29 seconds flat in the 2nd quarter. They swing to the back stretch for the final time, chasing Rock and Roll K's to 3/4. 2nd is Georgia Thompson. Up 3rd on the outside, Miss Chantal Makabe. In at the rail, Speaking of Shadow, 4th. Trailing 5th, Roses for Jenny. 3/4 up in 1. 28 and 1. They round the turn for the final time, led by Rock and Roll K's. Coming 2nd, that is Georgia Thompson. Miss Chantal Makabe is 3rd. Roses for Jenny. The trailer after a break. Speaking of Shadow, Rock and Roll K's in line to Kenny Murphy, a going away winner. 2nd is Georgia Thompson. Finishing 3rd, Miss Chantal Makabe. Excellent trip. 1:55 4 27 and 3 closing quarter.
A really confident Grand Circuit steer here from Kenny Murphy with the 2 Rock and Roll K's. They're going to flow down out of there, but they're going to let the 6 Georgia Thompson and Murner cross down to the lead, and they're going to keep on rolling up to get the lead from Georgia Thompson. A real good steer here by Kenny Murphy. They're going to get to the front. Pretty soft opening quarter there, 29 and 1. They're going to step it up just a tick there, 58-1 to the half, 128 and 1, as Vance mentioned. Kenny Murphy rocking and rolling down the lane here with Rock and Roll K's. 55 and 4, 27 and 3 final panel. This is a really nice sophomore filly from the Jeff Holmes stable. She gets it done here in the 7th.
Rock and Roll K's to the 7th race. Winners Circle Bay Facing Philly 3 by Tobago K's off the Camlock Dam. Timel Extra. Owned by Hardcore Racing of Belfast. Filly bred by Blaine Tebow of Kensington. Trained by Jeff Holmes and driven to victory by Kenny Murphy. Going right to her record of 155 and 4. Rock and Roll K's in the 7th.